has 2 degrees from OSU in biochemistry and human nutrition. He was elected to the Corvallis City Council in 1998, 2006, and 2008. He will run simultaneously for Congress and his council seat in the November election. Mike Beilstein was born in Normal, Illinois, and moved to Salem, Oregon in 1964, where he attended South Salem High School. After graduating from OSU, he served as a teacher in the Peace Corps in Lesotho, South Africa. He worked at Oregon State University from 1978 until 2007. On the left, Representative Peter DeFazio chairs the House Subcommittee on Highways and Transit and has controlled key federal investments for Oregon. When the Republicans controlled Congress, he was able to negotiate a change in the highway funding formula that resulted in Oregon receiving more federal gas tax dollars than it contributed to the Federal Highway Trust Fund for the first time in 50 years. DeFazio continues to push for sustainable forest policy. He's also developed a thinning proposal to improve forest health, create jobs, and provide economic certainty for timber-dependent communities. DeFazio has repeatedly voted against congressional pay raises and has refused to accept pay raises while the government is in the red. And finally, on the right, Art Robinson is an internationally respected scientist and educator, a successful businessman, a skilled public speaker, and father of 6 admirable young Oregonians raised on their Southern Oregon farm, the family home for more than 30 years. Art is an expert on energy and widely known for his petition signed by more than 31,000 American scientists exposing human-caused global warming as a fraud. He worked on medical issues and defense issues during the Reagan administration and energy issues during Clinton and Bush. Welcome, gentlemen. We're going to start with opening statements from the candidates, and we'll work by last name alphabetically to begin with. These are 2 minutes each, so Mike Beilstein, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. I'd like to quote Marine Corps General Smedley Butler, who said, "War is a racket." And by that he means that the American people, through their taxes, pay for the military, which conducts wars for the benefit of a few criminal conspiracies such as United Fruit or Standard Oil, and allows them to rip off the world and to enrich a few people at the expense of taxpayers and at the expense, of course, of those people they're stealing from. Now, we are engaged in 2 major wars. We are occupying 170 countries with U.S. troops, and I think we've really seen the truth of Smedley Butler's statement that war is a racket. It's for the benefit of a few people who get rich at the expense of all taxpayers. And currently, as a city councilor in Corvallis, we've just been through a budget where we've had to cut $2.5 million. Next year, we expect another $2.5 million from our budget, reducing library hours, raising fees on park and recreation service, having fewer police, less fire protection. And the country is suffering this not because of some mysterious economic malady. The truth is, it's just the rich have been managing to steal too much, and a lot of the way they do that is through the military. As a Green candidate, I pledge that if I'm in Congress, I will never vote for one of the supplemental funding bills that pays for the wars and the occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan, and I will do what I can to cut the military budget. I think that's the primary issue in this election. It has been every election since 2000. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, if you follow the news, you know it's not easy to maintain common sense and an ethical compass in the halls of power in Washington. That's why I've chosen to keep my home and family in Springfield, commute almost weekly to Washington. You know, it's pretty hard to get distant, out of touch, or self-important when you get questioned by a guy in a pickup truck in the Weimar parking lot in Springfield about the latest problems reported from Washington. And they say, if you want a friend in Washington, D.C., get a dog. Well, I got 2 big ones here at home in Springfield. So I've gone to D.C. not to go along to get along, but to stand up and fight. You know I'm willing to take on anybody, presidents, my own party leaders, Wall Street, and other powerful special interests, to fight for what's right for my constituents, Oregon, and our nation. We're not always going to agree, but you know where I stand on important issues and why. I'm fighting for policy changes and programs that will put tens of thousands of unemployed Oregonians and millions of Americans back to work. A lot of my constituents had questions last year when the president called me out for voting against the stimulus package. I stood my ground, I volleyed back. Every penny of the $800 billion was borrowed too much, invested too little. Only 7% went to infrastructure, but that was 35% of the jobs. The education investments, they're critical. That's investing in the future in our kids. But $340 billion in tax cuts to get 3 Republican senators' votes, that didn't put anybody back to work, and it sure as heck didn't help anybody who wasn't paying taxes and didn't have a job. Last year, I called on the president to fire Secretary Geithner and Summers, and I'm pleased this week to see him talking about infrastructure on Monday, small business, infrastructure, and investment today. I believe he's changing course, and I want to work and continue to push him to work for not work for Wall Street, but work for Main Street. Thank you.
Art, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I'm Art Robinson, and I want to point out first, this is not a partisan election. There are 8 political parties represented here in these 3 men. I represent the Republican Party, the Constitution Party, the Independent Party, and the Libertarian Party. Our problem that we have is not a question of some particular issues. Our problem is that people are trying to decide which way our country will go. Part of our people want to remain on the path of our constitutional republic to protect our liberty, and others want to follow a path where the government owns more of us, takes more of our resources. They want to turn our public lands into government lands, our public schools into government schools, our public medicine, our free enterprise medicine into government medicine through this 2,000-page bill that our incumbent voted for. They want to turn us into basically a socialist state, where the government owns everything, controls everything, and tells us what to do, and we are drones that work for the government. I don't like that. I don't think that's what my country's about. That's what this election's about. In the case of the incumbent, his voting record is clear. He's voted for government schools consistently. He's voted for the turning of public land into government land. He's voted for the turning of our private medical system into a government medical system. He's a consistent man. He has voted consistently for 20 years in this way. He's independent, all right. He's independent because he's a career politician, and this is the way he is found in Washington. I don't think that's the way our country should go. I think our country needs to remain free, and we faltered recently because we placed so much government on the backs of our industries and of our people. We need to get the government off our backs, out of our lives, and out of our pockets, and get our country started again. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue round robin with our starting person. So this will start with Peter DeFazio. It's a question that all candidates have been advised of in advance. And the question is, tomorrow is the 9th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. It seems that the ability of small numbers of people to do harm to large numbers of people has never been greater. Some feel that a large-scale military response, as in Iraq, is an important tool in the fight against terrorism. Others have argued that we need a smaller-scale response based on international law enforcement. As our voice in Washington, gentlemen, you'll speak for us on defense issues. Do you have a preferred U.S. policy for dealing with persistent worldwide terrorism?
Well, day-to-day, it's an intelligence and law enforcement issue, and we need to work closely with our allies, something the Bush administration chose not to do. Sometimes you do need a military response, like in Afghanistan, to go after Osama bin Laden and the Taliban. And I wish we'd stayed focused on Afghanistan, and I think things would be much more stable today in Afghanistan and Pakistan had we done that. But the Bush administration diverted us into an unnecessary and disastrous war in Iraq. Now, I opposed that war. That was wrong. But now we've got to pick up the pieces. It's a dangerous world. We need allies. This administration's done a better job with that. We need improved intelligence, law enforcement. We need special operations in the military occasionally for serious threats. We need to better control our borders, protect our ports, and continued infrastructure. But one thing we don't have to give up is the Constitution of the United States. As one of very few in the shadow of 9/11 got the guts to vote against the so-called USA Patriot Act. That was wrong. We don't have to give up our freedoms to protect them.
Art, you have 1 minute.
Well, I'm interested in that comment about the Constitution, because what did we give up when we got this 2,000-page medical bill that's unconstitutional?
Our next segment is where the candidates get to ask a question of each other. And candidates, just to reinforce what you've already been told, it's 30 seconds for the question, the answer is 1 minute, the rebuttal is 1 minute. And continuing our rotation, Art, we'll start with you. You can ask a question of any candidate you'd like. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, this is a great forum. It's wonderful that everybody's turned out. I want to ask my opponent, the incumbent, why he won't do what every college and high school debater will do and step next door after this forum and debate me on normal debate terms. In a debate, you have long enough to present reasoned arguments, to present defense, and to present facts. I want to debate this guy, and I think he should debate me man-to-man next door after this event. I want to know why he won't do it.
1 minute.
Well, we're at a debate. It's arranged by a neutral moderator. We finally agreed to this, and you agreed to 3 others. You can have all the campaign events you want. I'm not coming to yours, and I'll have campaign events, and I don't want you at mine. But I'm looking forward to this opportunity today and future days. I want to talk about your ideas, abolishing public education. Your idea is to do away with all taxes and all regulations on BP, ExxonMobil, and other energy companies. Your opposition to the reform of Wall Street, and then some of your more exotic ideas like putting radioactive waste in our water, our insulation, and our homes. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to discuss those things and have you account for the things that have been said over the last 20 years.